Hello, welcome to our mini lecture of our Chicano film class. I am Dr. Liliana Collins Gallegos, and the title of this mini lecture is Brown Identities as Multiplicities. Hispanic. Hispanic is a census term invented by the Nixon administration in the 1960s during a time in which Puerto Ricanos and Chicanos were uniting to clear up the circumstances of their existence as U.S. citizens. They were beginning to unearth the true history of Chicanos and Puerto Ricans in the USA. The term was invented during the time after Cubans were fleeing the Cuban Revolution, and circulating wide were images of poor, tattered refugees seeking help and looking like they didn't belong here, and they were like needy and poor. So the history of Cuban Americans is nothing really like the history of Puerto Ricans nor that of Mexicans in the United States. As for Puerto Rico, it had been a colony of the U.S. since 1898. Puerto Ricans have been part of the U.S. territory since then. This breaks with the idea that they are invasive immigrants. We will look into Mexican U.S. history deeper during this class, but I will tell you that this land was indigenous first. Then it was actually Mexico, and it was filled with Mexicans over 200 years before any Anglo settler came here from the east. Different forms of Anglo-produced mass media, from dime novels, postcards, to film and television programs, have been used to purposely feed the lie that we do not belong to these lands, or that we're perpetual foreigners to them, even more so than those who crossed entire oceans to be here. The term Hispanic highlights the Spanish conqueror while forgetting our indigenous mother. It favors European cultural invasion while ignoring indigenous culture and roots. Latino. Many of us prefer the term Latino nowadays. The term began being used by the U.S. government in 1970 census to refer to a person of Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin, regardless of race, in the context of living in the United States of America. Neither Latino nor Hispanic are used in Latin America. But this was not the origin of the term. In fact, the French invented the word Latino during the intervention of Mexico in the 1860s. And they did this because the French wanted to diminish the clout that the Spanish had and also the Anglo culture has had in Mexico, while reinforcing this notion of belonging to both nations. They wanted to create a grouping of all the people descending from Romance languages, descendants of the Latin language, in other words, all those people who spoke the imposed languages of colonizers in the Americas. The term was also used to differentiate from the USA, as it was a country that was colonized by Northern Europeans. Chicano. Chicano is a versatile identity. It means many different things to different people. There are two main theories of the origin of the word Chicano. One is that some historians think that it can be traced back to the Nahuatl, the name for Mexico, and Chicano being a variation of a person belonging to Mexico. And two, originally, wealthy Mexican Americans used that term as a pejorative term to describe Mexican Americans of lower classes who had browner skins and who worked in the fields or doing service jobs. The term then becomes reclaimed by La Raza during the civil rights movements, the Chicano movement of the 1960s. And this made Anglos fearful, and it is believed this fueled the move towards creating a term to counteract the term Hispanic. Students walked out in protest at public schools from Crystal City, Texas, to East LA. The United Farm Workers, under the leadership of Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez, held marches in coalition with our brown cousins, the Filipino farm workers, and they led the Delano grape strike for inhumane conditions in which farm workers were held. And it was during this time that the term Chicano became a symbol of pride. The Chicano cultural experience has its first media snapshot taken in Rodolfo Corqui Gonzalez's poem, I Am Joaquin, later to become the first film made by Chicanos, for Chicanos, and about Chicanos, and we will study it in depth in another mini lecture. Some people use it interchangeably with Mexican American, while others do not want to associate with the term Chicano either because they think it's a cholo gangster thing due to mass media representations of Chicano, or because it is associated with left-wing politics and resistance movements, or simply because they do not even know what the term means. I will tell you why I choose the word Chicana to define myself, because it places me within a politics of representation of resistance and consciousness. To be Chicana means to assert my own ethnic, political, and cultural identity while rejecting and resisting assimilation into whiteness, systemic racism, and stereotypes, the goals of colonialism and the American nation state. Chicano identity calls for the need to create alliances with other oppressed identities while protesting U.S. imperialism and its dehumanizing and dismissive ideology. Chicanx, Chicano, Chicana. This, adding an X to Chicanx, emphasizes an indigenous ancestry referring to the Mexica people and its true pronunciation. Ending with an X is a rejection of Spanish binary, gender-normative language systems imposed through the use of Spanish, which is another colonizer language. Something similar happens with the word Latinx, but this one is inclusive of all Latin Americans in the shared experience of coloniality. La raza. It means literally the race, but it is a metonymy for the community. Metonymy is when you use a linked term to stand in for what you are referring to, like indirectly. For example, the silver screen is used to refer to films, but it has this poetic reference to the actual silver metal that the first screens were made of. It gives you a feeling of nostalgia. In a similar way, when you say la raza, it is a way to refer to our ethnic and cultural mixtures, the fact that you cannot quite define us with a single word, yet la raza captures that essence. Soy raza. It sounds pretty badass too, because, of Kid Frost. Do you know Kid Frost?
Hey, homie, I'm getting tired of dudes just getting over on the raza.
Yeah. This is for the raza. Yeah. This is for the raza. Yeah. This is for the raza. MC Kid Frost, yo soy jefe, patrón, it's the big boss. My cuenta's loaded, it's full of balas. I put it in your face and you won't say nada. About those cholos, you call us what you will. You say we are assassins and children to kill. It's in my blood to be an Aztec warrior. Go to any extreme and hold no barriers. Chicano, and I'm brown and proud. Want this chingazo, Simona, so let's get down. Right now, in the dirt. What's the matter? You afraid you're gonna get hurt? I'm with my homeboys, my ties, my camaradas. Kicking back con mi ganga y pa' mí no diga nada. Yo soy chingón ese, like Al Capone ese. Controla todo, so don't ever try to sweat me. Some of you don't know what's happening, que pasa. It's not for you anyway, cause this is for the raza.
The term was in use in 1858 in local California, Mexican newspapers like El Clamor Público, The Public Outcry in English, and by early Mexican Californios writing about the Latino America identifying themselves as members of La Raza Latina. It is also related to the writing of José Vasconcelos' La Raza Cósmica, 1925, a mythological approximation of brown race similarly defined as that of the white race in terms of it being represented as a hierarchically supreme race, not just through history and institutions, but through actual systems such as the casta system, highlighting our prowess and historical successes. Chicano communities use the term to mobilize and incite people to become politically active through newspapers such as La Raza, filling the void of no media coverage of Chicano issues and activities. And this is how they kept the community informed. La Raza is a term that unifies all those people whose ancestors or they themselves have suffered the effects of colonization and hierarchical thinking that have led to the marginalization of their mestizo identity and culture. To understand how this hierarchization has resulted in dehumanization, we must know history and understand the effects of colonialism in our indigenous roots through its ongoing proxy, also, or the zombie form, like I call it, that just does not die, coloniality. I'm not that wise, but in my times around the block, I have learned a few things. I believe it is stupid to get hung up on the identity labels, and it's necessary to have discussions, but it's not necessary to continue fighting each other about them because we are assimilating to the idea that we need one label. I propose that instead of choosing a single term, we respect individuals' decisions to choose the term that is best for them at any moment in time. Like Chicana queer thought teaches us through the writings of Gloria Anzaldúa, let's embrace the fragmentary state, like Coyolxauhqui, or the one adorned with bells, daughter of Coatlicue, who according to mythology is destined to live her life in pieces. Yet the pieces are the parts of or components of her continuous and never-ending process. We can turn our back or question the validity of the idea of what it means to be whole. We must learn to embrace the possibility that we can in fact be multiplicities and many more identities because of how rich and complex we are as a people. We can shape-shift and use this fluidity to our advantage. The future is not homogeneous, meaning that the goal is not to all become the same. Instead, the future is diverse. It is more complex. Multiple conflicting truths can be real at the same time. I believe that as a people, we must come to terms with our liberty and embrace this fact in order to continue liberating ourselves and demonstrate that in us is the example that many different worlds are and actually have already been possible.
Hey shutekutli tlaso kamati in mishikayo jana wana yana hene yo wen shutekutli yana wana yana hene yo wen hey shutekutli tlaso kamati in mishikayo jana wana yana hene yo wen.